Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing you to the news on church stories. I am Oyin Opala. Let's begin. Over the past 2 weeks, the people of Ambazonia have walked through a valley of solemn reflection and profound grief. The nation stood still as it paid its final respects to two of its most illustrious leaders, the late Vice President Mbeseha and the revered Director General of the Ambazonian Broadcasting Corporation, Mbeseha. Their passing marked a deeply emotional chapter in the Ambazonian struggle, a struggle not only for political liberation, but for the preservation of identity, dignity, and hope. Yet, amidst the sorrow, a new flame has been kindled. Ambazonians, tempered by years of resilience and unity under adversity, have once again demonstrated their unbreakable spirit. As the period of national mourning concluded, the federal government of Ambazonia resumed official activities, not with a sense of routine, but with a revitalized determination to honor the legacies of its fallen heroes. Led by President Dr. Samuel Ikomisako, the government reopened its sessions with a powerful recommitment to diplomacy and strategic governance. The continuation of the national draft took center stage, symbolizing the collective will to press forward on the path towards sovereignty. In a stirring national address, President Sako, paid heartfelt tribute to Mbeseha and Mbeseha, describing them as pillars of Ambazonia's revolution whose sacrifices will forever light the nation's way. Their lives may have ended, but their missions continue. Through every policy, every act of resistance, and every voice that refuses to be silenced, Ambazonia moves forward, not in forgetfulness, but in full remembrance of those who gave their all so that freedom might live. All right, all these and more will take into full briefings, but first, let's get the prime headlines. A fallen pole kills an innocent boy in Victoria is a report we will definitely be looking at tonight. Also tonight, federal government draft resumes after national mourning. President Sako lowries Ambazonians with diplomatic resolve. Unpaid and unheard, GCE workers lament hard on unpaid salaries. Also tonight, we'll take a look at billions for Yaoundé dwellers, crumbling roads for Ambazonians. On the African scene, rebels attack Ocha in North Kivu, kill civilians and burns home. Massive protest erupts in Israel as families demand hostage. Now let's get the news in full briefings. A young boy whose life was cut short in Mile 4, Victoria on Friday morning as a falling electricity pole claimed his life. The tragic incident serves as a reminder of the colonial government's failure to address the growing danger posed by dilapidated wooden poles in the former British Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. While the La République du Cameroon government announced plans to produce 50,000 concrete poles in April, The reality on the ground in Ambazonia tells a different story. Communities continue to rely on aging wooden poles, which are often not replaced swiftly, even when they become hazardous. The boy's death is a direct consequence of President Paul Biya's government's action and lack of prioritization. The fact that several poles in Boya and other Amazonian towns are already leaning precariously, raising fears of similar accidents, is a ticking time bomb waiting to unleash more tragedy. The La République du Cameroon's government's announcement of producing concrete poles was supposed to be a solution to the problem. However, it appears to be nothing more than a hollow promise, a publicity stunt designed to placate the public rather than a genuine effort to address the issue. The people of the Cameroons, Ambazonians, deserve better. They deserve a government that matches words with actions, that prioritizes their safety and well-being. Until then, tragedies like the one in Victoria will continue to occur, and the colonial government will be held accountable for its failure to act. The question remains, when will the BS government take concrete action to address the issues of dilapidated wooden poles and ensure the safety of its citizens? Barrister Mbeseha, good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted. Barrister, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm okay.
All right, so dilapidated wooden pole falls off and kills a small, innocent boy. This is just one of those issues where we come up, we would always highlight the part that regardless of all of this, regardless of the political tensions and all that people are gathering for themselves, the innocent ones, the children, the babies, the women, the girls, the helpless, the less privileged are definitely the ones going to bear the brunt of all of this.
Well, again, it is one of the unfortunate events that reminds us of where we're coming from and why we're fighting. Say the issue of lack of electricity has become part and parcel of the community of Ambazonia, in particular, and maybe Cameroon at large. The company supplying electricity is called Enio or something like that. But the excuses you always hear are that the transformer has failed. This has happened. They can't do this, they can't do that. A transformer is a machine produced by the white man. So they go order failed transformers that don't supply electricity. But what happened in my fall is something very peculiar. We're told that an electric pole fell and killed the child. An electric pole is a wooden piece of stick. It's not a transformer imported from Europe. It's a piece of stick standing there. Did that piece of stick just fall like that? Did the vehicle hit it? No. It got rotten. So it had been there for over the years. It has stayed there and past its time of its period of existence expired. And nobody cared to check about it. It didn't just fall. It first of all leaned for months, if not years. People were sitting under it. Then finally it went down and killed the child. You ask yourself, why all this? Why? Wouldn't piece of stick come from the forest somewhere, not ordered from Europe? Whose fault is that? Wooden electric poles are not new. We live in the US, they're here, they're in Europe, they're everywhere. But common sense shows that when it's standing in front of my door right here, a wooden pole Ours has a lifespan. There's something, if you go inspect any wooden pole in Europe or across the continent, there's something pinned on it to show when the lifespan of that stick will end. And by the time that the last pipe, I said, maybe it had 10 years to be there or 5 years, whatever length of time, the people should cautiously come and replace it. They don't do it in Cameroon. They didn't do it in this particular case, and they didn't fire and kill a child. But most importantly, which has not been addressed, is you find this family weeping and crying. Everybody is trying to bury the dead. You remember, on all occasions, when they don't have water, when they don't even have electricity, when they don't have roads, they go to a certain gentleman called the Dio, the chef de terre, who is created from Yaoundé with all the authority in him to do or undo. He is also in charge of electricity, and by implication, electric poles put there in Limbe like nowhere else. Where was he? Where was the chef de terre? I've never even seen him. I saw him weeping there. I never saw the Dio even show up there. They say, well, Mr. President who sent me here by decree is sympathizing with you. He's not there. But you show up there, if people try to hold a meeting to do anything, you will disperse them. You show up there at every family meeting and tell the chef de quartier there to vote for CPDM. But this is death. I've not seen any of them there. Now they even see council staff coming to sympathize with that family. And so why are we here? This is the most unfortunate thing that we can ever find, that situation we ever found ourselves. That electric poles, wooden sticks will fall and kill our own children. The last I heard of that child will bury tomorrow. No questions asked. Nobody is giving even an excuse for that. In a regular country, that electric company should pay for that. But it is not about payment. Even if they pay $1 billion, 10 francs, 100,000 is not going to bring back the life of that child. And so, again, it is multifarious that the children are just playing. They don't have control over who supplies electricity. The common man does not have control over who supplies the wooden poles, or the cables, or the transformers. But they are victims of it. The people who are responsible are simply quiet. And above all, again, I insist, the chef de terre, the khaki-wearing guy who sits in Limbe there and spreads his tentacles to every small organization, water supply, small demonstrations around the quartier, small meetings in the village to go and jange. He cannot even show up. It's so sad. We should never have been here, as I always say, but we're here. We wish that family sympathy to bury their dead. But people of Limbe, wherever in southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, those things are found, those poles are found, they should not live through that nonsense anymore. I don't need to tell you what to do, but you can do something to end that nonsense. Either Enel is supplying you the electricity with the security that goes with it, or they are supplying nothing. Because electricity is not just it's not the poles just standing there. It's not the cables hanging up there. You see houses being burnt everywhere because of electrical outages. Why? They have to control the quality of the cables that come to the market and supply in your houses. They have to control the quality of the transformers that come and supply that nonsense. So your fridge does not blow off the next hour. They have to control the quality of the pieces of wood they put there and call electric poles. If they're not doing this, they have failed, and they have failed woefully. And I wish that family, they will feel so sorry for them. I wish they will get rightful lawyers, correct lawyers, to hold that company accountable. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Hopefully, they will be held accountable. Now, following a 2-week period of national mourning in honor of the late Vice President Mr. Arik Ate and the Director General of ABC, Maima Endele, the federal government of Ambazonia resumed its official activities with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. The resumption was marked by the continuation of the government's draft, beginning with a strong emphasis on diplomacy led by President Dr. Samuel Sako. Addressing the nation during the session, President Sako paid tribute to the fallen leaders, acknowledging their sacrifices and unwavering commitment to the Ambazonian struggle. He expressed deep admiration for their legacy, emphasizing that their dedication would serve as an enduring beacon for the nation's journey towards sovereignty. Let's get that first part of the president's speech.
These two fallen comrades were more than colleagues. They were my close friends and collaborators. Their departure feels as if a part of me had been cut off. As I observed the celebrations of their heroism, I said within myself, some of us alive today may not cross the finish line. Our own time may come to depart, even when the mission is still incomplete. This can happen by accident, by sickness, or by age. The one thing is certain, Ambazonia will cross that finish line, whether with all of us or with some of us. Our duty as freedom fighters is simple: total dedication to the mission.
Well, in his speech, President Sako underscored the importance of diplomatic engagement as a critical front in the Amazonian fight for independence. In some of his words, he says, "We have been building bridges across the world," he stated, highlighting efforts to foster international alliances and garner global attention for the Amazonian cause. The president addressed ongoing diplomatic challenges, specifically referencing the high-profile case involving the Kansas City 3, a situation that has stirred concern amongst Ambazonians at home and abroad. According to President Sako, dialogues are underway with key international stakeholders, including the United States government. He expressed optimism following comments by U.S. Senator Marco Rubio, who affirmed that the current administration would continue to support global struggles for freedom. According to President Sako, the prosecution has done nothing substantial. Dr. Sako asserted, says Ambazonians believe in justice, and we are confident that the Kansas City 3 will ultimately be safe. Now, our comrades have done what is necessary. We will no longer accept delayed tactics. According to President Sako, he says by December 31st, this case must be resolved either through a hearing or dismissal. Let's get that.
The Kansas City 3. They were wrongly indicted by the Biden State Department and taken into custody, all in a bid to assist the blood-sucking regime in Yaoundé. As Professor Hines rightly said, the decision to indict them was a political one. Politics is what defines the line between freedom fighters and terrorists, self-defense and organized criminalities. We are actively working on the case of our comrades. The new U.S. administration has been petitioned to review this matter, a glaring example of double standards by the previous administration. Unfortunately, for now, Mr. Trump has not yet appointed an Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, nor a new U.S. ambassador to Yaoundé. Our comrades are asking for their day in court while the prosecution keeps playing games, pushing for endless adjournments. This serves only the interests of our oppressors, the genocidal regime of Yaoundé. Our demand is clear: no more delay tactics. By December 31st this year, this case must be resolved, whether by hearing or by dismissal.
Well, looking ahead to the upcoming United Nations General Assembly in September, President Sako offered a sober assessment of the international body's role. He criticized what he called the UN's toothless stand on the Amazonian issue, accusing it of historical inaction and systemic reluctance to correct past errors. According to him, he says they only make recommendation, he said. This means the responsibility to secure The independence of Ambazonia lies in the hands of all Ambazonians, said it is a fight for every citizen. President Sako reiterated that all diplomatic arguments must be framed not as pleas for recognition, but as affirmations of Ambazonians' inherent right to sovereignty.
The United Nations, their upcoming UN General Assembly in September is in reality a toothless gathering for us in Ambazonia. The United Nations has already taken the unfortunate position historically that our decolonization is complete. They also have no history of correcting their own errors, and we cannot sue them either. Truth be told, all our arguments based on UN resolutions are important, but only as justifications of our right to restore sovereignty. The present United Nations may only engage in a matter as a peace and security issue, not as a matter of decolonization. The United Nations General Assembly does not decide on peace and security issues. They only recommend. Therefore, the buck is in our own court. We must fight until the drowning Cameroon system realizes that this fight will destroy both countries, and that our mutual survival, the survival of Ambazonia and Cameroon, depend on our separation, not through this war of assimilation they have declared on us.
The president also used the occasion to take aim at the regime in Cameroon, denouncing widespread corruption and calling it the highest it has ever seen. He warned that international actors still propping up the Biya's regime may soon realize they are feeding dead cows. Dr. Sako alluded to sacred missions currently underway, urging supporters to embrace what he called a new era of quiet diplomacy without revealing operational specifics. He assured Ambazonians that meaningful progress was being made behind the scenes. On a personal note, President Sako announced the release of his new book, The Marketplace, a work focusing on the art and strategy of diplomacy in times of conflict. He described the book as both a practical guide and a historical reflection on the Ambazonian movement intended to inspire the next generation. Well, the next generation will read our autobiography and marvel at what others went through, he said, emphasizing the sacrifices made by countless Ambazonians for the cause of liberation. Let's get that.
To celebrate our diplomacy, I have made another small contribution. I have published a book titled The Marketplace Leadership Vacuum. It has costed me some money to publish. This is no publicity. I have handed hard copies as gifts to diplomats already in the United States. In this book, I dedicated a whole chapter to the Trump phenomenon, rising from the Judeo-Christian foundation of the American political system and the leadership vacuum caused by the drift from the center. I believe this book can help us make some friends within this administration. This is our moment, and together we will finish strong.
Well, in closing, President Sako issued a strong call to all financial warriors across the diaspora and within Ambazonia to rise to the occasion and secure the resources necessary to finish the fight. Well, as the Ambazonian government continues to navigate this complex diplomatic terrain, the president's message was clear. Unity, sacrifice, and strategic engagement will remain the pillars of the ongoing struggle for a free and sovereign Ambazonia. Oh well, Barrister Mbeseha, coming from 2 weeks of mourning, President coming with the draft for diplomacy and giving all of these substantial talks from almost every corner that I'm sure that Ambazonians would want to hear something from. It's very encouraging, and I love the fact that he let everyone know that whatever they are doing, there's going to be an autobiography where the children, the generations to come, will see how much effort everyone has put into this fight for liberation. Happening for the second time, the draft for diplomacy. What can you say, the attitude and the turn-up of Ambazonians? How can you say that will be, or that has been? If you can
Well, I
remember
think
how last year's was, comparing last year's draft for diplomacy and this year.
yes, I can remember what it was, but it will be important to deal with what we have now because of the existing circumstances under which we have done this draft going forward. We've always talked about diplomacy, but let us deal with this today. This one that happened last weekend that was the first time we came out after 2-3 weeks of mourning. We're mourning the departure of two veterans, the Director General of ABC and our Vice President. We cried. We wept like any other family. But after every weeping, after every death, there's a burial. After every burial, people have to move on. The world continues. And then what is left of those people is the legacy that they've left behind. The legacy is not necessarily material things. It could be something. And in this case, the legacy they left behind us, the instructions they gave were the last words they told us. My Emma said, look, don't forget the struggle. Fight on. And the VP said, before his own passing on, if you can do anything, never leave Ambazonia. I'm paraphrasing them. And after we bury them, after we remove the sackcloth, as we call it in the tradition, we now went into the second phase, which is now diplomacy. Because our struggle is going to move henceforth essentially on two fronts, the fighting on the ground and the diplomacy abroad. And so it is important for us to understand that. The president laid a good foundation to explain why those things are actually important. So that those people who draft and those people who criticize can better understand where we're coming from and where we're going to. He mentioned, for example, the Kansas City Three. Those are three gentlemen unjustly held because of this struggle. They've been there for a number of years, 2-3 years, I think. And then he told us their problem is not that they committed a crime. Their problem is a political issue. They're trying to brand them what they are not. They're not trying to brand them as individuals. They're trying to brand them as members of this movement and to paint us black when we were never ever black. And so we need to talk more than just going to court. Going to court is just one aspect of defense. The larger part of the defense in this particular case is going to be diplomatic. We have to cross the walls. We have to climb the fences to get them out. That's one of the reasons why we must draft. Then he went further again to explain what the United Nations is all about. The difficulties we face at the United Nations. And I think he clarified a number of things that people did not know. Most people have thought maybe that one good morning the Secretary of the United Nations would descend from where and say you're independent. Maybe, but that's the most difficult part of the story. So the United Nations created this problem. They are not going to take us out of it. That is what we should understand. But are they irrelevant in this struggle as far as diplomacy is concerned? They are not irrelevant. Because as of now, we have documentary evidence which you can use at a diplomatic level to secure what we need, to secure our independence, which we would. Because we have to get a guiding pole. We have a post, some star that we're trying to follow as leading examples of the countries that have had independence by use of diplomatic approaches other than the United Nations. You can just mention two, for example. I do remember something they call the Kosovo. Kosovo, they didn't have the history that we have. The Kosovites are simply a people. But they were part of Serbia. They were just part of Serbia. And then they said, look, we no longer want to take this thing. We're a people. They declared them the independence by themselves in 2008. And as of today, Many countries have recognized them. Not through the United Nations, they have just been recognized. Then the second example that we should use as a guiding post, be in Africa, is South Sudan. South Sudan was the full-fledged part of Sudan. But there are people different a little bit from the other northern Sudanese. They didn't have the documents that will have to support us from the United Nations. But they fought. They fought. And diplomatically, they won the independence in 2011. Today, they are members of the very United Nations. They still are United Nations. And so we should not think that everything is lost. We've not lost anything. We should just be encouraged that we'll have this evidence. We'll have this we shall always cite the United Nations. Because wherever we go to seek diplomacy, we shall cite them. We shall say, look, we are a member of the United Nations. Look at what they did to us. Look at the injustice they played on us. These are the documents. It will not just be a story. Can you please help us? And they would. Because what do we need from the international community? We don't need their money. We're not asking money from them. We don't need the army. We're not asking a military force support from them. We're simply asking, for example, for recognition, which costs them nothing. Say, no, this is too wrong that they did this to you. I'm called Nigeria, I recognize you. I'm called Serbia, I recognize you. I'm called Russia, or any other country among the 190-something countries in the world. That is diplomacy. And so the president's speech was so important. And then he reminded us, you see, we can talk. Not everybody listens to us as we talk here. After this talking, if nobody follows up this thing to listen to what we said because it's taped, they will forget. But people read whatever by the United Nations documents, resolutions, they were written down in black and white. And the president has gone further to publish a book. Which book? I may not know the history. I might not want to read his book because I already know what is inside. But I would prefer to have 2, 3, 4 copies and give it to a stranger who might read it and will never know where the help will come from. I say, why? Is it what happened to people? That would be a wonderful advantage that we might have. And so I think the president laid out those things. They're absolutely important for us. And then he said, going forward, we're the financial warriors. The financial warriors are not the general public. The financial warriors, we want them to be so many. But if there are as many as 1 million, we remember Ambazonia is more than 8 million people. So the financial warriors will generally always be the minority, but they should never be discouraged. Even the money is spent, the time that you and me spent here is not being in vain. And he said, at the end of the day, history will be written. It's going to be documented. Don't be surprised. You're sitting there as young as you are. By the time you pass into eternity, your children will read this history. You'll be surprised. They'll see you sitting and talking with this old man. And they'll say, oh, so my mom played this big role in this revolution. And so that's what we should be encouraged to do. I think the president made an powerful speech. He made an encouraging speech, an enlightening speech for us to follow. Because leadership is about a vision. Leadership is about directions. And so that is what happened. As we already said goodbye to Emma and the VP, we say, welcome to the regenerated, to the new spirit that we have, that will push us forward. And so that is what it is. We have to move on, do what it takes to free ourselves. The United Nations ordered and the United Nations, we will go, we will succeed. They like Kosovo succeeded, they like Southern Sudan succeeded. Just 2011. Southern Sudan is 2011, just 15 years ago, 14 years ago. And so we're not late. We're not wasting our time. Electric poles can kill our children. Some will survive. The rivers can carry away our priests. Others will survive. Accidents may wipe away our brothers and sisters, but not everybody will die. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Now, moving on to some other reports for tonight. A recent meeting at La Republic to Cameroon's Unity Palace has exposed deep divisions within Cameroon's Catholic Church. Senior bishops have abandoned their spiritual roles to serve a corrupt regime, while the church leaders claim their visit was non-partisan. Efforts for peace, the move is being widely condemned as a sellout to a government's quality of years and industries, including the ongoing Ambazonian war. The August 13 visit of Catholic bishops to the BS presidency has ignited a firestorm of controversy. The meeting, arranged by Ferdinand Ngongo, the Secretary General in neighboring La Republic to Cameroon's presidency, is viewed by many as a calculated political stunt to legitimize 92-year-old Paul Biya's bid for 8th term. The perception is exacerbated by the fact that many of the same bishops had previously issued scathing critique of the electoral process and their government's widespread corruption.
Voice of Ambazonia. Good day, listeners. Today is Monday, July 21st, 2025. Today we take you into the heart of a silent betrayal, one that has reshaped the destiny of Ambazonia, not with guns or tanks, but through quiet infiltration, cultural erasure, and political substitution. This is the story of the 11th province. In the 1950s, as French Cameroon burned from the violent UPC uprising, thousands of French-speaking refugees fled west, seeking safety in British southern Cameroon. These were men, women, and children from the Bamileke and Mbeseha heartlands, escaping French bullets, torture, and scorched villages. And Ambazonia, then still called British southern Cameroon, welcomed them. They were housed, educated, protected, and integrated. Under British rule, Southern Cameroon stood for order, tolerance, and a strong sense of community. Refugees found a new home in Kumba, Tiko, Boya, Bamenda, and Manfe. But with this kindness came a cost we were only beginning to fully understand. Fast forward to the 1961 plebiscite. The people of Southern Cameroon were asked, join Nigeria or reunite with French Cameroon. General Funcha, with strong support, including from many of these newly integrated refugees, championed reunification. He spoke of a common German past, of brotherhood. One man saw through the illusion, Dr. E.M.L. Endele. He warned that what they call reunification was actually assimilation, and he was right. Endele lost. Reunification happened, and a quiet conquest began. Soon after, something subtle but dangerous occurred. The children of these refugee families, now English-speaking and living among us, started receiving scholarships, overseas opportunities, and appointments in government.
You're welcome back. Sorry for that mix-up there. In another report, a coalition of secretarial workers for the 2025 General Certificate of Education GCE session is on the verge of a strike, given the GCE board an ultimatum to pay them their long overdue salaries. The workers, who have been denied their wages for over a month, are highlighting the deliberate exploration of their labor, a situation they believe is linked directly to the colonial government's continued negligence. In a letter addressed to the GCE board, secretarial staff have laid bare the conditions they face, framing their struggle not just as a payment issue but as a fight for dignity. These workers who braved adverse conditions to ensure the smooth running of the GCE exams have left being unpaid for months. Their pleas also ignored. Their letter condemns the paltry 1,000 francs CFA per session, a sum they consider insulting given the immense efforts required, and notes that a government capable of managing a functional education system elsewhere is choosing not to. The workers' grievances are compounded by a new payment system that channels their meager wages through banks, a measure they believe is an ill-conceived attempt to cut taxes that only serves to make their money inaccessible by La Republic to Cameroon. This measure, they argue, puts them at a disadvantage, a common theme for citizens in all three zones of Ambazonia who are consistently marginalized and undeserved. Critics have pointed out the workers' frustration as a raw reflection of a broader systemic failure, where for years they have used the ongoing war as a blanket excuse for their inability to provide basic services. These recent incidents reinforces the view that the colonial state's mismanagement has created a fertile ground for unrest. To many, the workers' ultimatum pay up by Tuesday, August 19th, or face protest. It's not a mere threat, but an escalation born of desperation. They are directly challenging the occupational government that has proven time and time again that they do not care about the suffering of the people. Barrister Mbeseha, part of corruption that we know is when you do not pay a worker what her or his worth is, he may begin to look for dubious means to survive. And it's funny how something as sensitive as this kind of exam, the workers will be held a penny. In other climes, people who do professional certificate examinations such as this, they are not even known, not to talk of old, because they know the delicate issues that surrounds it. I mean, what happens if these teachers in quotes or examiners or workers begins to trade bribe for grades? Because I mean, they all work hand in hand. What would you say about this sad situation?
No, it will not happen like that, because the markers were dealing with the exam marking. They are marking the exams. They probably, most cases, they don't even know which paper they are marking. And so if they are not being paid, there's a different scheme behind it. And I will venture to insist that it might be a ploy by the government to bring down the board. Because the board itself was created against the wishes of the government. They don't want anything called GCE board. People lost their eyes, they lost their limbs for the creation of the board. And so government would do everything to bring it down. And these are the few instances. The board initially, when created in 1993, 94, I think, around that time, the board was headed by the GCE board called the general manager, the board who was supposed to be independent of the ministry. So he was supposed to be chosen by the board of the board of the GCE. But since then, they have turned around, like the GCE board manager, or whatever they call him, has become the employee, the appointee of the Ministry of Secondary Education, who can be fired at any time. It has virtually lost its independence. And so government can bring down that thing. And I think they plan to bring it down. Why? The non-payment of those people, I think it's not because they lack money. No, not because they lack money. Because the GCE by itself is a very expensive exam. You pay cash. There's no credit for any student writing the GCE. You pay cash and write the exam. You pay cash as you know it is a single subject exam. If you're writing 10 papers, you pay more than somebody writing 5. In fact, you pay per subject to write. And so that should not be the issue of money. Because if 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 students wrote that thing, they're all paid cash. And so they have raw cash, they're supposed to have raw cash to run the GCE board. Why then? Because see from this segment, they are talking of the secretariat staff. These people work in the secretariat. Why should they be targeted like that? The markers, those who mark the scripts, pay per script. They can say if you mark a script, it's 100 francs per script, something. I'm just giving an example. And so it's properly evaluated. But they will not mark the script. The script will not come out of the secretariat without the secretariat staff. And so if you frustrate the secretariat, the markers will not have any money. They will not do any work because the coding and the so on is done in the secretariat. And so there should not be a distinction between the markers and the secretariat staff. They are all absolutely important. And so if they are not being paid, I suspect there's a ploy somewhere to weaken or destroy the GCE. Because in a sense, the market of the GCE and the work of it is voluntary. You're not bound to go there and work. Because not every teacher is invited to go and mark. So too, not everybody can go sit in the secretariat and work. And remember, they are doing this during the long holidays, where they're supposed to be doing their own private businesses. And so, why use them and then fail to pay them for their services, be it the markers or those in the secretariat? They cannot trade marks for grades. The only thing they can do is they can simply abandon the thing or do a very bad job of not marking well. Because, as I know, to the best of my knowledge, the markers don't even know which script they are marking. The people in the secretariat don't know whose script they are sending to who to mark. And so, again, it's a government ploy, I think, if the story is true. It's a government ploy to destroy the GCE board. Because it should never be the issue of money. The GCE board should never be asking money from the ministry to pay the GCE exams. Because they are not exams that you do on credit. You pay cash, raw cash. You count the money and give. They give you a receipt. You're writing 2 A-level, you're writing 4 A-levels, you're writing 10 O-level, but you pay a subject. The fee is arranged by the board, taken into cognizance that they will pay the workers, in other words, the markers, the secretariat, and whatever thing they will need. And so I think I very much fear that if that is true, there's a place somewhere to destroy the board. Because again, the board was created against the wishes of Yahweh. They never wished that would have anything like that. But the board was created to meet a demand of the Anglophone educational system, which they capitulated after a long struggle. But now that they are taking over everything that we have, they might be just trying to take over. They have even started taking over the GCE board. The registrar, who is the chief of the board, was supposed to be independent, but they have started appointing registrars to the GCE board, which is a red flag. All of us should be careful. Let these guys be paid. If they are not paid as required, my personal conclusion is that someone, somewhere, the ministry, the presidency is passing through the registrar, who is now the appointee, to weaken or to destroy the board. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. All right, moving to the last report for tonight. The colonial government in neighboring La Republic of Cameroon is seeking a 165 billion franc CFA loan from the IDB to rehabilitate a major route between its two largest francophone cities, Douala and Yaoundé. This move highlights its discriminatory and punitive policies against the English-speaking people of Ambazonia, plagued by a collapsing infrastructure amidst another deepening humanitarian crisis fueled by the colonial state-sanctioned neglect. Well, the BS regime has formally requested a staggering 165 million francs CFA loan from the Islamic Development Bank, the IDB. This money is earmarked to rebuild a key highway for its political and economic heartland, the cities of Douala and Yaoundé. Critics have termed these so-called investments an open act of political patronage, a slap in the face to the Ambazonian people, where a deliberate long-standing policy of neglect has left vital infrastructure to rot. While the colonial state's leadership champions a new project for its francophone cities, the roads in southern Cameroon are nothing more than impassable death traps. The main arteries are not just in disrepair, but are patrolled by armed groups, impersonating the Ambazonian State Army, rendering them a constant threat. The rest of the road network has deliberately been allowed to crumble, ensuring all three zones in Ambazonia remain isolated and economically suffocated. The decay of the roads is just one symptom of the larger rot plaguing these three war-torn zones. Yet, years of systemic underinvestment have left hospitals, schools, and other public services in ruins. The humanitarian crisis is a direct consequence of the occupational government's failure to provide a functional society, a regime which has chosen to prioritize a military solution, abandoning the people of Ambazonia to fend for themselves amidst the chaos. Again, critics believe that the 165 billion franc CFA loan for the French road project is not for national progress, but a clear signal that the La Republic de Cameroon's priority is its own consolidation of power at the expense of Ambazonians. Barrister Mbeseha, you can see how
Well, again,
stand up. Yeah.
again, it's unfortunate that we are seeing what they are saying. They are borrowing money to fix a road. Well, like the last segment, we talked about an wooden electric pole falling. The road did not start to decay today. It takes years for a road to go to that level. That's the Douala Yaoundé road, you say. But Cameroon is not Douala Yaoundé. These guys are trying to catch up, trying to hold an ocean with their own hands. If they ever made a mistake in their lives, this is the first time they ever made a mistake. They call elections in October, which is almost the end of the rainy season in Cameroon. They never knew that this road issue will catch them everywhere. The so-called Cameroon, that is supposed to include Ambazonia, has no road in the last segment as we just showed us. Highway number 1, from wherever going to Kusiri, passing through Darwa and all these places. I just had to kidnap buses, there are people there, and kidnap 15 people from the buses. The roads are impassable, absolutely impassable. What they're even doing on Douala on the road there is even better. Douala is, which has a population of not less than 4-5 million people. You cannot move there. We're still talking about them. We're not even talking about Ambazonia. There is absolutely no road. They are scrambling to dig a road in the heart of the rainy season. It's not possible. From that segment you showed us there, you see one time tar road, the tar has collapsed. It didn't collapse by accident. It has been gradually deteriorating. Nobody cared about it. And of course, we have had the time to sing the choir of bad roads in Buea, bad roads in Bamenda. Even the ministers have come to Buea. They have gone to Bamenda. The president of France, through his minister, his ambassador, has been to Bamenda, talking about the same roads. Totally impossible. Yes, they are pretending to borrow how many billion, whatever the amount of. They might borrow the money, but like any other money lent to them, they'll steal the money. They have not meant to construct any roads. Any loans given to them now for the lenders, I would advise them not to give them money. Because the regime is on its way out to simply carry away that money to wherever they are going to hide after the elections or after the death of Paul Biya, where tumult is likely to follow. And so they cannot pretend to dig the road. I don't even know why those banks give them the money. But they are free to give them the money because what is the security for the loans? Apparently gas from Bakassi, apparently the oil that we have and the oil resources. Because of nothing. They will steal the money, they will not dig any road, they will disappear. And so the issue in Cameroon is not just roads, as I just said. Everything has crumbled, including electricity where electric poles fall on children and they die. Nobody is answerable to it. Including rivers that sweep people away. 60, 70 years after independence, nobody is asking a question. Including houses that get set on fire. And of course, including election time, including Ambazonia, where 80% of the population has been destroyed. Their homes have been burned, their schools destroyed. People have ceased to be anywhere. And then, election time, as I saw last week or 2 weeks ago, they will carry caterpillars, bulldozers, go and stand on some place and say, well, this is the ring road. We're digging the ring road, which they will never dig anyway. They will carry something and go and stand in the building. Oh, we're trying to cut the road. They will never cut any road. They will come out with pieces of paper to sign a memorandum of understanding. We want to fix Sonora, which they will never fix. I think they've been caught in the on trap. It's unfortunate. This level of corruption, this level of inefficiency, this level of laziness, of the non-existence of a government within the life of a people is just too much. It is why we find we could not have belonged to this nonsense. And again, as I've said most of the time, enough is enough. Let them dig their roads if they choose. They replace the electric poles if they want. But Ambazonia is gone not to come back to the minimum. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. And this is where we'll let you go for tonight. Undaunted. It's been an amazing 1 hour with you for tonight. Tomorrow is another day where we'll take a look at all the happenings from the home front, bring it to the front burner, dissect and send agendas with them. Thank you so much for coming on tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you very much.
All right. After the break, we'll take a walk into the Democratic Republic of Congo, where rebels attacked the Oicha in North Kivu, and civilians have been killed, homes has been burnt as well. In a brutal assault on Sunday, suspected Allied Democratic Forces ADF rebels to get at the town of the Oicha, the largest urban center in the Beni territory of North Kivu province in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The attack left several civilians dead and caused widespread destruction in the area. Local authorities and officials, witnesses as well, reported that some of the victims were shot at close range inside their homes, while others were burned alive as the attackers sent at least 20 houses ablaze. The precise number of casualties remains unclear, but authorities confirmed multiple fatalities. According to a statement from the Congolese military, the ADF carried out the attack as an act of retaliation. The group, which has been active in eastern DRC for years and is considered one of the most violent armed groups in the region, is believed to be responding to recent military offensives that resulted into an insignificant loss for the militants. Also in Africa, at least 40 people are missing and feared dead following a tragic riverboat accident in Nigeria's northwestern Sokoto state. Things then occurred on Sunday near the Goronyo area as the boat was transporting passengers to a local market. According to a statement from Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, authorities reported that 10 people have been rescued so far, while search and rescue operations are ongoing. Emergency responders, local divers, and volunteers have been deployed to the area in hopes of locating survivors, but efforts are being hampered by murky waters and strong currents caused by recent heavy rains. This tragedy highlights a growing safety concern in Nigeria's riverine and rural communities where boating accidents have become disturbing frequent, particularly during the rainy season. These accidents are often attributed to overloaded vessels, poor maintenance, and a lack of regulatory enforcement. Many of the boats in use are wooden canoes or aging ferries, ill-equipped for the number of passengers they carry. And when we return from the break, we'll get into news across the globe, where massive protests erupt in Israel as families demand hostage deal. Well, Israel witnessed one of its largest protests on Sunday since the Gaza war began nearly 22 months ago, as thousands of demonstrators took to the streets demanding a deal to secure the release of hostages still held in the Gaza Strip. The nationwide protests were led by families of the hostages who accused the Israeli government of failing to prioritize the safe return of their loved ones. Organizers said the time for symbolic gestures had passed and urged Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to take decisive action. "We cannot wait any longer," said our representatives of the families. "Our loved ones are suffering, and every day that passes without a deal is another day of pain and uncertainty." Protesters gathered in major cities including Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa, waving banners that read, "Bring them home now," and "Time is running out." Many called for increased transparency around the negotiation process and criticized the government for what they see as lack of urgency. Negotiations for a potential hostage deal have reportedly stalled in recent weeks as fighting between Israeli forces and Hamas continues in Gaza. The hostages taken during the early stages of the conflict are believed to include both civilians and soldiers. The Israeli government has not issued a formal response to Sunday's demonstrations, but officials have previously stated that all efforts are being made to secure the hostages' release. Also, Zelensky returns to White House. European leaders will join Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House on Monday, marking his first return since a tense and unproductive Oval Office meeting in February. The high-stakes visit comes as global attention shifts towards renewed diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine. The meeting follows a flattering summit in Alaska earlier this month between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, which yielded no concrete progress. In light of that failure, analysts say Monday's talks in Washington could prove pivotal for any future peace agreements. That's it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news on short stories. But before we go, let's get a look at the stories that made it to the high points of tonight's news. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that a falling pole has killed an innocent boy in Victoria. Federal government draft resumes after national mourning. President Sako rallies Ambazonians with diplomatic resolve. Tonight, Unpaid and Unheard. GCE workers laments over unpaid salaries. Tonight, we told you that billions for Yaoundé Douala, crumbling roads for Ambazonians. Rebel attack Ultra in North Kivu kills civilians and burns home. Also tonight, massive protests erupt in Israel as families demand hostage. That's it for tonight's Undaunted. Since special thanks to our in-house analyst, barrister team Mbeseha, and a team of technicians behind tonight's production. It's good night and God bless.